Um, and the recording has started. So, all right. Um, I'm going to admit a few more people from the waiting room and we're going to get started. My name is Dana Kuhnlein. I'm joining you all from cloudy Ohio today, but I'll take the clouds. It means it's not too hot. I'll be your flight attendant, so to make sure you're on the right plane. This is our disaster resiliency series. It's a 6-part series exploring different aspects of the ways that disasters are impacting Appalachian communities, as well as the approaches that communities are taking to um, work on those and take ownership and take action for more positive outcomes for their communities. So I could not be more excited about today's webinar. I'm really actually really proud to be presenting this group of fantastic speakers and the variety of great stories and examples that they're going to be sharing. So I don't want to talk too long about it. But just a quick update, kind of says on the screen, what is a community resilience hub? The answer is it can be a lot of things. The most important word being the word community. And we know that all communities are different. All communities have different needs, different geographies, different landscapes. And so you're going to see today that we have community members who are approaching what a resilience hub can look like, what types of impacts it's going to address from different angles. And I think that's just a really rich way to approach this puzzle. So we're gonna start with a couple questions for you all. And then Liam, if you could drop that link in the chat. So this is an interactive poll. You'll see a link go in the chat in just a minute that will have your answers pop up on the screen. And we'll start to fill this out. And so the first question, we'll have a couple questions for you all. This one's a little test to get you started. I believe you can select as many as apply. But you're here to talk about resiliency hubs. What are the kinds of problems that your community might need a resiliency hub for? What are the sort of concerns that your community might be responding to? Um, um, when you're looking at how can you be prepared, what are we preparing for? What are y'all worried about? What do y'all want to see? While we're filling that poll out, and we have a lot of folks joining, so if you could just drop that. Oh, you did drop the link again. It's only letting you pick one. I'm so sorry. That's a mistake on my end, and it is too late for me to fix. So just pick the one you're most concerned about. We're gonna have to go with that, and I apologize to folks. For that, because I know we're the folks who come to our meetings, you're never worried about just one thing. You're never worried on just one issue. We are folks who wear many hats. So I apologize for that. I always try to have all of the above because so many of us really are all of the above, right? If you could go on mute if you're not speaking. Um, so as we're getting started with this poll, thanks for folks who are finding that link, filling that out. I want to share a couple things. One of the fantastic opportunities that we have is the the Central Appalachian Network, which is the co-host and co-planner of this webinar series, has a mini grant series. Sorry if we could mute folks. I'm not able to right now. Has a mini grant application that is currently open, and the kinds of projects that folks are going to be talking about in their presentations today are actually all perfect examples for that could be applied to through that mini grant program. So we're going to drop a link in the chat just a minute if folks are interested in that mini grant program. To get funding for kind of starter funds. There it is, Liam. Thank you. Starter funds for the kinds of projects that we're gonna see today. So one of the reasons we wanted to host this webinar is to give folks ideas for what they could do with those mini grant programs. We also want to see a little bit about where y'all are joining us from. So hopefully you still have that poll option open. And this is another one where if you can only fill out one, I apologize because I know a lot of us do work in multiple states. And then as y'all are filling this one out, And sorry for folks whose state isn't represented, or the screen only allows so many, so I always have to guess who's going to come. So welcome from Tennessee. We are happy to have you here, even though we don't have you on the poll. So I just wanted to acknowledge the fact that as we're having this conversation and we have folks sharing in the chat, the webinar is being recorded. There was just terrible flooding in the Wheeling, West Virginia area that people right now are recovering from. And I have a friend who just texted me to say that they were doing flood recovering and got sent home because more flash floods are expected. And so it's no longer safe to do the recovery work today, which is just unfortunately a reality that so many of us are familiar with. Absolutely heartbreaking. But I did want to share a couple links in the chat for some of the organizations that are doing some mutual aid work right now, if people want to engage in that. The Ohio Valley Mutual Aid Group, they have an active Instagram page where they are sharing needs for supply deliveries, as well as opportunities to both apply to get your house mucked out, as well as to volunteer to do muck out work. And so I know some folks on this call might be in driving distance to the Wheeling area and wondering how they can help. So I just wanted to make sure we shared that in the chat today and acknowledge the hardships that that community is facing today that we all know so well and think about every time we hear that summer rain on our roofs. So we're thinking of them and of everybody else who's still recovering from the last flood. I have another question for you all, which is, what is your role? What brings you here? I believe this is another one where you might need to answer all 8, because again, we're all many hats folks. But if you are able to answer more than one, feel free to. And if I've done the poll wrong, that's fine. And if you are putting in other, please share that in the chat so we can know how to fix the poll for next time to make sure that you're included when we make these polls. Oh, we got a lot of others. Student, excellent. Glad to have you here. University, all right. Well, we can call, y'all can fill out community members. So it's great to have all the folks from these different sectors here. We'll give y'all another. Oh, great question on the mini grants. So yes, the mini grant footprint is more or less the Appalachian Regional Commission's definition of Appalachia's footprint, or it is a community-led thing. And so, as Della would say, so I'm taking words out of Della's mouth, but if you aren't included in the ARC footprint, but you still think you should apply for this, should qualify for this mini grant, feel free to put in a couple paragraphs about why you think that's the case and why you think your community is still a good fit for this program and has this need, and they will consider your application. So as far as geography, that make your case, as Della said in the chat. So it's full Appalachian region, not just Central Appalachia. Yeah. So, and that's sponsored by the Central Appalachian Network. And then I don't believe I shared the date that it's due, but it's due pretty soon. So Della, if you could just put that date in the chat, I know you know it right off the top.
It's June 27th.
June 27th. All right. Y'all got 10 days to get your ideas from this webinar and put your, and it's a real short, it's just 1 page. So we really do encourage folks to apply for those funds. So just a few notes. I know I've been talking a while. Do I have one more poll for y'all right now? Here you go. You can put that one in there if you want. This is just one last little poll before we get to the speakers. But just nuts and bolts. So this webinar is being recorded. A link to the recording will be sent out to everyone who registered for the webinar. So if you registered for this webinar, then we have your email address. And well, that's powerful right there. But we have your email address, and we'll get that to you, as well as the links to the slides of all of our speakers and any of the links that are shared in the chat. We will type all those up in an email for y'all and send those out probably tomorrow. It takes us some, because we do it manually, and so it takes us a minute to get those together. So with no further ado, I'm gonna hand it over, and I'm gonna let these powerful words populate for just another minute, but we're going to move over to our first speaker, which is Austin with Appalachian Voices, to detail some of that. to some of that work, but look at these incredible words coming up, Austin. So we'll give that just one more minute and then we'll hand it over to you. Wow. I thought it would slow down, but y'all got a lot of meaning. This is great. And we'll send this image to y'all. All right, it's slowed down. I'm gonna take my screen off and hand over to you, Austin. I'm so glad you're able to join us.
Sounds good. Thanks, Dana. And always really happy to see community at this front and center of everything that we do. So I was really excited to see that word out there and being used by everybody. But hey, everybody, my name is Austin Counts. I work with Appalachian Voices in our Southwest Virginia office. And so that is located right in the heart of coal country in Norton, Virginia. And Appalachian Voices is an environmental and economic focused justice nonprofit that works across Central Appalachia. We have work in West Virginia, Kentucky, Tennessee, North Carolina, and Virginia, and are slowly spreading out throughout the further throughout Central Appalachia. And so, personally, my role is the Solar and Electrification Projects Manager, and I hope to one day change that to the Resilience Project Manager because really we're seeing this as kind of the front and center of our opportunities on how we ensure the safety of our communities and foresee the economic and kind of small community oriented future within the region. And so if you ever want to reach out, my email is on screen. You can reach me at austin@voices.org. Other than that, we can go ahead and skip to the next slide. So I'm here to give us a little bit of a run through about what it is we're talking about here today. And resilience hubs kind of take a lot of different pathways, and I want to talk with a few of those with you all today. But I'm really going to focus in a little bit more on energy resilience hubs. And so whenever we're talking about energy resilience hubs to increase resilience in communities, and a lot of times smaller, more rural communities, we're talking about any place within the community that provides reliable backup power, generation, and a slew of critical resources during emergencies. This can be facilities anywhere from your local school all the way down to your small community church. And so, really, any facility, as long as it has a role in providing resources to a community during outages, can serve as a resilience hub or as an energy resilience hub. You can see a little bit more on that at our website with the Solar Work Group of Southwest Virginia. And that's swvasolar.org/energy reliability and resilience. And what you see on screen right now is four different, hopefully, back one slide, please, is four facilities that are not yet energy resilience hubs, but we hope to be able to make so in the near future, or at least four different models of energy resilience hubs. So I want to dive through a little bit of each of those now. So the first and foremost, and I think it's probably the kind of emergency, whenever we think about emergency shelters, this is probably one of the most common ways to think about it. So what you're seeing on screen right now is the Four Seasons YMCA in Tazewell, Virginia. Right now, this facility only has a solar panel array. And so they're really hoping to be able to pair this with battery storage. That way, the facility in Tazewell County, whenever any kind of flooding events or power outages are happening, they're able to provide this larger emergency shelter. And so this means that not only would they be able to provide community members with reliable access to electricity for things like charging cell phones, keeping food hot or cold, or just keeping warm or cool during extreme weather. But it's also going to have enough space for people to physically shelter there, stay overnight, be in community, and be safe no matter the scenario. And so a lot of times people think about if you're looking at an energy resilience center, if you're looking at an emergency shelter or any kind of resource during outages, this is the number one model that they think about. But there are a number of other ways that we can think about energy resilience hubs throughout the region, especially whenever we start talking about smaller communities that maybe have a little bit of a less population, but just as much need. And so on our next slide here, there's another project that we're working on. Next slide, please. There's another project that we're working on in Dungannon, Virginia, and Lou's going to pick on me about this a little bit later because we're also working in her community of Daint on a similar project. but it's really looking at this idea of community energy resilience hubs. So it's not necessarily somewhere that hundreds of people can shelter during an outage overnight, but it still provides critical equipment and resources to communities during outages. So one example is community energy hubs could provide basic heating and cooling needs, as especially during the hot of the day or the cold of the night, to make sure that community members are always at a safe temperature, as a safe as possible temperature. These kind of facilities usually provide some kind of functioning kitchen. That way we can make sure to keep both critical medications that need to be kept cold whenever outages happen, especially long duration outages, but so that we're also able to provide warm or hot meals to community members at the same time to increase their own comfort level. These kind of facilities will continue providing access to communication so that people can contact their loved ones to make sure that they know they're okay and checking on others, as well as providing charging equipment. However, again, may have limited space for sheltering. That's not saying there cannot be sheltering, but they would really want to think about the space that they have available in these kind of smaller facilities. And a lot of times, these facilities only are looking at solar panels plus storage about the size of what a medium to large residential home would utilize. So definitely on the affordable, more affordable end of this larger resilience hub uh, system strategy. Next slide, please. The next kind of system that we can think about is food and energy hubs, because it's not true that the only thing that communities need during outages or during emergency events is electricity. In fact, food, access to water are just as important for community members. And so by working with organizations in your community that already provide some of these critical resources, we can make sure that food is always accessible to your community. We can make sure that water is always accessible to community, and that your community both has places to store its important foodstuffs, but also that the community is able to distribute food as much as possible. And so on screen here, we have Appalachian Harvest in Duffield, Virginia. And fortunately, Randy Gabbert is also on the call here today, which she may touch on this a little bit, but I imagine she's really going to be touching a little bit more on the importance of food and food access during these kind of outages. And this is just one more way that we can make sure that those resources are always available, no matter what the utilities grid is looking like at the moment. And then final slide. And then one of the, not final, but one of the more innovative options for communities to consider whenever looking at energy resilience and energy resilience hubs is mobile energy resilience hubs. And so what you see on screen is a completely mobile solar plus storage unit that has been deployed throughout North Carolina, and as you can see, also in Mississippi by the Footprint Project. And so this, while having limited heating and cooling capabilities, they can have some. And while it relies on accessible transportation routes, it really provides probably the max level of accessibility to community members, especially whenever you're thinking about communities that are extremely rural or remote. And so, in addition to be able to literally drive your energy equipment to whatever community, big or small, that needs it, you're also able to duplicate these kind of facilities. So if a community owns one such system like you see on screen, that's great. However, if you have a bunch of communities that need access to this kind of equipment, you can buy 1 or 10 or 20 and be able to deploy them however you need, either individually or as a part of one big unit. And so one small solar panel unit can quickly become one large unit made up of 10 different, either 10 different panels or 10 different trucks. And so, in addition to being maximally accessible, it also gives communities a very wide range of energy needs that they can serve. And so, these have been deployed for things like mobile medical units. It can be deployed for strategic heating and cooling in communities as needed, but it can also be for things like simple phone charger banks, for refrigerator units or freezer units. Really, anything that fits on a small truck or a trailer is something that you can now power and distribute to communities rather than expecting people to relocate to the energy hub itself. And then last slide. So with all this known now, there's still this big daunting task of how you actually get started, how you decide which of these works best for you, and how you get kind of the ball rolling on your own local energy resilience hub. So here are a quick few, our 4 short steps on how you get this process rolling. First, you really want to look at meeting with some of your local stakeholders. And so this could be anything from a local church that's concerned about its constituents to a local town or a county. Really, anybody that you see as active and concerned about the resilience of a given community is those you want to be talking with first to figure out where you can collaborate early on. Second, you really want to identify what existing local resources you already have. Do you already have a fire station with power backup? Do you already have a local restaurant that's able to provide these kind of resources? Or do you have a propane generator or a propane stove somewhere in the community that you continue to use? By identifying these local resources that you already have, you can both strengthen them and make sure that they're included in your overall resilient structure because you don't want to duplicate things that you already have, especially whenever money is low. Next, you want to make sure you connect with community members. And I think this is where having community front and center in big, bold letters earlier on really shows. Because no matter how engaged you are in a community, it's very likely that you don't have the full picture of what your community needs. And so you really want to be able to connect with your community members to identify the needs from their own mouths. That way you can make sure that you include that in some way in your resilience hub planning. And then finally, you can combine all these first 3 steps into identifying not just one, but potentially multiple locations that meet the local needs across your community. You typically want to find a facility that's if you're in a city, that's within about 10 to 15 minutes walking distance, or if you're in a more remote area, that's within 10 or 15 minutes worth of driving. And so that's my 2 cents on how you get started on this process. If you're in Southwest Virginia or really anywhere in Central Appalachia, feel free to reach out. We'd be happy to help you think through what your own next steps are for getting an energy resilience hub in your community. And so with that, I'm going to hand it back over to Dana.
Yeah, and Balin's our next speaker. Folks are already talking about technical assistance and funding and how to get things started. So that's perfect timing to hear from Balin on what you're working on.
Wonderful. Hey, everyone. Can you see my slides okay?
Yeah,
Awesome.
They look great.
Well, thanks for having me on today. Great to be in conversation with you all. I'm Balin Campbell. I'm the Director of Programs and Partnerships with Invest Appalachia, and I'm based in Hazard, Kentucky. Invest Appalachia is a impact investing platform that serves the Central Appalachian region. So sorry to our PA and Maryland friends, a part of ReImagine, that we are not in your exact neck of the woods, but excited to support everybody and share a bit about our Resilience Hub work that we're developing. This is a project that I started incubating prior to Hurricane Helene, and the need and importance for this work is clearly critical and increasing as a priority. So today I'm speaking wearing a hat as a funder, a grant maker who is working to identify resilience hubs in the region to support. And I as also a lender, but we act as a grant making intermediary. So I'm actively fundraising to help support how we can scale this work over time. Again, very much in alignment with Austin's presentation. We're working to identify and build a network of community resilience hubs across the region, focusing on community arts organizations, community centers, faith-based institutions, public facilities, etc., and working to equip their facilities with the resources and systems they need to navigate efficiently and effectively through moments of crisis. I think of this as asset-based economic development, not just the assets that that bring visitors and newcomers to our communities, but assets that enable our communities to stay in place. We're approaching sort of visualizing this work as in 3 different pillars: tech stacks, capital stacks, and networking stacks. And our goal, while we have limited resources, is to identify a cluster of resilience hubs to support and equip them with these 3 stacks of resources, and collect through that process, really how it's being done. What are the granular equipments, mechanics, cost, etc. That way we can create somewhat of a blueprint to share with other projects and communities across the region as resources come to bear, where we can scale the creation of these hubs over time. So tech stacks ranging from solar and battery storage, telecom systems, weather and data collection systems, and standardizing those in conjunction and alignment with local emergency management. Capital stacks ranging from the grants, financing packages, tax incentives, and sort of creative investment models for financing these projects. And the network stacks, which includes the network of local partners involved in the creation and operation of a resilience hub, as well as the concept of networking these individual hubs across the region to increase collaboration. As we all know, each community has specific needs, and we are interested in identifying different typologies of hubs, ranging from primary hubs, which are larger, located closer to larger populations and downtown areas; secondary hubs that are a bit further out in the county, more rural. In other parts of the country, we've seen the concept of hub homes being created, which equip individual homes with some of these resources. And then the modular or ADU type hub components, like the beehives from the Footprint project that Austin mentioned, which is something that has helped support in deployment in some Helene impacted communities in North Carolina. I think it's critical, especially as we navigate through this current moment of really funding turmoil and chaos, to think critically about the varying pre-development components and creative ways that we can help to piece together the pre-development needs that facilitate investment into these projects. So here you'll see a list of various pre-development needs that really go into the development of a hub project, and requires a network of partners to facilitate that. And all of these are applicable under a lot of IA's pre-development grant dollars, as well as other funders, particularly private national funders, who are increasingly interested in the rural resilience space. So within IA, in the coming months, I'll say we've funded some of these modular hubs and have some pre-development grants out to one pre-development grant out to the Museum of the Cherokee People to become a hub in the Qualla Boundary. But we're interested in identifying this cluster of hub projects to provide them with pre-development dollars, some of which can be rolled into the overall financing package, which would mean that those dollars are recovered through financing and allows us to redeploy those. Recoverable grants that function like 0% loans, and credit enhancements that come in the form of loan guarantees and loan loss reserves that help increase access to capital from our own investment fund in these various loan products, on the right and other lenders as well. And we're also continuing to work with App Voices and the Solar Finance Fund to provide solar ITC bridge loans to individual projects. As we look at a more macro level at the funding environment, there are a number of individual agencies that had active funding opportunities that aligned with this mission and goal of creating hubs. As you'll see at the bottom, this little graphic is just my general perception of how it feels to try and keep up with the federal funding environment right now. However, there are a lot of private private philanthropic organizations who are increasingly prioritizing dollars and hope to see more of those. And here's a list of just a few, including the CAN mini grants. Want to shout those out again. I'll say these are not all organizations that we have been able to successfully secure resources from, but these are really values and mission aligned funders who I think we as a region can continue working towards having a more collective conversation with. And the last model I'll shout out is a creative model out of the Midwest called Revocity, which is an entity that has created community real estate funds, which I think are primed for replication in Central Appalachia and could really help facilitate and scale the development of hubs. So I just threw a lot at you all, sorry, but really interested to hear more from you, and please feel free to reach out.
Thank you so much, Balin, and we will share those slides. I know folks will be really eager to get those lists in their inbox. Our next speakers are going to talk a little bit about what all this looks like in practice and what the planning process looks like and the amazing progresses they've made, as well as the challenges. And so that's folks from a more excellent way of Life Center Church in Charleston's West Side, Dr. Robert Haley and Elder Denise White. And Molly's going to share your slides.
Thank y'all for being with us and inviting us to come in and speak to you about our little place here on the west side of Charleston. As you know, several years ago, or a couple of years ago, we had a gas crisis here on the west side of Charleston, where a high-powered water line erupted, and it caused damage to a gas line, which caused water to shoot through the gas line to just about every home and every business and everything here on the west side. This is like the middle of November, and but since we've been here, which we came here in 2018, our goal was to affect our community, be a help. And some time ago, we got with a couple of great people, and we decided that we would like to have solar panels on our church. The solar panels were not so much to facilitate the church, but our goal always was to have a place where, if in case of a crisis, people could come to the church and have a safe place to be, clean water, heat, be able to fix their food, and do other things to help their daily needs. And over the years since we've been here, we've been trying to head to that place that we need to be. Our church is located on the west side of Charleston, here at Five Corners. Yeah, we do.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, thank you. On the west side of Charleston, and I'm just freewheeling it. Elder Denise made such a beautiful slideshow, and I want y'all to see what she did. So, but I just do better running my mouth. Okay. So anyway, it was our goal to be able to affect our community. Wasn't born on the west side of Charleston, but I grew up here and went to junior high school, elementary school, and high school here. And so when we had this crisis, and we've had several crises here on the west side or in Charleston. Many of y'all may remember back years ago, we had a water crisis. The west side was always the place that got served less or last, and we had our own personal issues that we had to go through. So as we go forth, we're trying to facilitate a solar panel. Elton, you can go forward on your slide.
Okay. All right. So in light of what has been happening in the community, we were approached just in the past 18 months by two organizations, and one of them, Protogens, and also Downstreams Technology. And our partners have done amazing work with us through the Civil Society Institute and the Appalachian Solar Fund, and in providing us not only with the confidence to move forward with the project, but also to get going on the feasibility. As Dr. Haley mentioned, we were thinking about the solar panels being on the top of our roof, which you can actually see the schematic technical drawing from what we envision would happen on the building, to be able to provide, as Austin has mentioned, a place where people could come to get food, a place that people could come and get charged up for their batteries, or a refrigeration center where people who have medications that need to be refrigerated could do that. We've had crises in the past where during COVID, the kids didn't have an opportunity to get their lessons, and so they would come to the church because we had the only site available where they could get Wi-Fi access and be able to get their classes going and continue to do that. So everything that we've been doing with our partners is to create a community resilience hub that would be a location of one that could be replicated throughout the Kanawha Valley to assist when we have these types of either man-made disasters or natural disasters throughout the community. And it would affect more than 20,000 homes in the greater Kanawha Valley, and that's what we're trying to do now. So the feasibility study has been done. Next slide. And that funding came through the Appalachian Solar Fund, and we're very, very excited for them. So as was mentioned earlier, these are the things we're trying to do: serve as a community resilience hub during power outages, maintain critical storage for food and other items so that we can distribute them. Every month, we are seeing close to 2,000 families that are in need of food assistance. And with all of the things that are happening right now in our political landscape, there are people who are coming as far away as Cabell County, knowing that there's food available. They're showing up on our doorsteps, and we don't turn anyone away. So these are important. And then also to providing climate control spaces for vulnerable populations, our seniors and those who have veterans and those who have medical issues of any kind. The church is being seen as a hub that people can go and get what they need. And one of our other goals is that we're going to reduce carbon emission. We're committed to working in the community to affect change. Next slide. So as I mentioned, and as Dr. Haley has mentioned, 2023 was a real bellwether event for our area. And let me share this: many of those homes that were impacted and businesses literally are still working through. When you think about a tornado hitting or a hurricane hitting, and you're thinking, oh my gosh, the immediate impact, and the news shows all of the pictures and there's all the devastation. Well, those families are still impacted months and even years after the event. And we still have families that are struggling with getting appliances replaced from 2023 because the wheels of equity run slowly, and trying to get the funding and recognizing that there is a need for our underserved communities to have access to food and emergency shelter, have reliable power that they can depend on, and get the critical services of support that they need. So we're working with a number of partners in the community to do exactly that, is to create a place where their needs can be met, both on the financial standpoint, the emotional standpoint, working through all of the other areas of when you think about a disaster occurring, we're working to make something happen. And so we're moving forward. Our interconnection application has been submitted to the American Electric Company. And so we're in the process of the next thing. So the final phase, next slide, is our recommendations, the next steps, and there's a whole list of them. So I was so glad to hear Balin talk about funding, because that's where we are now, knowing that this project is going to be $345,000. We still have a lot of work ahead of us to get this accomplished. We can't do the roof. We've figured that out after the feasibility study. The roof is not an option. So we're looking at an alternative placement, and I'll let Dr. Haley go from here.
Okay, the alternative things that we're going to do, we're going to build carports out here. We have 2 parking lots adjacent to the building. So we'll be putting solar panels on those carports. Also, we will be doing battery backups and also a gas generator. Our goal, like you said, is to bring stability in the midst of just horrific times. And so, like I said, as we do that, we do provide, as Elenice was saying, we provide food for our community and surrounding communities. So we wanted to have a place where they can come, one place they could come and receive all that they need. With our partners such as Rite Aid and, not Rite Aid, but Health Right, Cabin Creek Health, and a few others, we have access to medical facilities. And like I said, we just want one place, or a place that they can call or seek information to be able to get the help that they need in real time. And so we do, during our crises there, eventually the governor showed up and did a lot. The city showed up eventually, but we were almost 2 weeks without any support. And the community stepped up to help each other, purchasing blankets and heaters, electric heaters, and we provided food and other things for the community. So it's very important that dialogue like this happens. If not, we're going to find ourselves with our pants down and in a whole lot of trouble. So you see some of the things that we worked with. Our goal was to put grants in with FEMA and Homeland Security for water infiltration systems, so that whatever happens, we can take care of it. Also, we had tried to talk to other churches and community members about a full-fledged plan in case something would happen, that we'll be able to take care of our community. Can you get the next slide, please? Okay, this is what the rendering finally came down to. And like I said, it's the paneling on the carports, and it will not take care of all our electrical problems, but it will lower our use of electric low enough for us to be able to manage. We're looking at, right now, we're looking at about $1,200 a month or higher. And we hope to bring it within $200-300, which will be a great help. We can kind of direct things to other places. So, Elenice, you want to talk about their budget? So.
Well, I mentioned earlier the cost, and I saw in the chat someone was asking about the FEMA brick.
And I just want to say we only have another minute. So for y'all, I apologize because I'm loving everything you're saying. But if you could move towards wrapping up, I want to make sure we have time for everybody.
There's no problem.
No problem. So I already mentioned what the cost is for our budget, and we'll just move forward. If anyone has any questions, they can, of course, reach out to myself or either Dr. Halen.
And of course, you were on your last slide right as I called time. So
See? That's how that works.
So our next speaker is Randy Gabbert from Appalachian Sustainable Development, and you'll see some symmetry between y'all's projects because Randy's program also feeds a lot of people and provides really important roles in the community when disasters happen. So Randy, I know for Wi-Fi reasons you won't be sharing screen, or you won't be sharing video, but here's your screen that looks great. And you're on mute if you're talking.
Thanks, Dana. Hey everyone, thanks for being here. Like Dana said, I'm Randy Gabbert with Appalachian Sustainable Development. There's been a lot of excellent presentations so far. So hopefully this one matches. But Appalachia faces unique challenges like geographic isolation and infrastructure gaps. So it's critical for our communities to prepare and stay connected. So today I'm going to share a bit about ASD's efforts to increase community resilience through strengthening food systems, supporting economic development, and building community partnerships. Oh, I'm sorry, it's not switching.
The slideshow misbehaving.
Yeah.
They do that. We can see it now if you want to just not do the full screen if your computer doesn't like that. There it is.
Okay. If it acts up again, I'll switch to that. So our journey began back in 1995. Appalachian Sustainable Development works to grow a stronger Appalachia through agriculture. And our mission is to build a thriving regional food and agriculture system that creates healthy communities, respects the planet, and cultivates profitable opportunities for Appalachians. By teaming up with local farmers and community leaders, we've expanded our reach across Northeast Tennessee, Southwest Virginia, and will continue to grow our reach. We like to think of our work as like cultivating a ripple effect where every seed of change helps our whole community grow stronger and more resilient. And we do this through our 5 main focus areas: workforce development, agricultural education, food access, economic development, and resource management. So we're incorporating these focus areas and goals into the development of our agricultural campus in Bristol, Virginia. Imagine a dynamic 17+ acre agricultural campus on the outskirts of Bristol. It's a place open to the community and built to demonstrate and support what sustainable farming can look like in Appalachia. A place where we champion agriculture by teaching people to grow in ways that are more innovative, efficient, sustainable, and profitable. A place that gives rise to new agricultural and food businesses, more efficient and successful farms, and a stronger regional workforce. It's a hub of agricultural possibilities and a leap toward healthier, stronger communities. Prioritizing aspects during development like renewable energy, energy efficiency, and water conservation can make a big difference to ensure resilience while also supporting day-to-day operations by decreasing costs over the long term. We're keeping these factors in mind as we develop and plan for the Ag Campus to achieve our resilience goals, which are to support everyday readiness with preparedness efforts, while also offering training to folks to increase skills that support resilience, such as growing your own food. We're building a safe, reliable space which includes backup power, clean water, and a place for people, while also creating places to connect so people can learn, celebrate local culture, and just get together. We're committed to strengthening communities by integrating resilience into everyday spaces. This commitment has led us to look into adapting our existing Appalachian Harvest Food Hub with rooftop solar, but this will be funding dependent. So this is our the outside of our Appalachian Harvest Food Hub, which is located in Duffield, Virginia. It connects small to mid-sized growers to regional buyers through aggregation and distribution support. It's also the facility that our popular food box program operates out of. So in 2024, our food box program distributed over 77,000 food boxes while providing income for as many as 40 local farmers. Food security is a critical component of disaster preparedness. So rural food hubs such as this serve as essential infrastructure for distribution, especially in a crisis. If you imagine a sudden disruption without backup storage or distribution plans, food access could vanish rather quickly. That's why we're also pursuing energy independence to ensure Appalachian Harvest can continue critical operations when disruptions occur. With help through our partners at Appalachian Voices, we were able to get some proposals for implementing rooftop solar and potentially battery storage at AH. The next steps involve deciding which system would work best for our facility's needs and then securing funding for the project. Resilience starts at the local level. Instead of just reacting to disasters, we're working to plan ahead by building infrastructure, supporting local food systems, and forming strong partnerships that create lasting change. When we prepare now, we ensure communities don't just survive disasters, but are able to thrive in any conditions. How prepared is your community? That's a good question to ask because natural disasters are unpredictable, but community preparedness can lessen their impact. Appalachia faces unique challenges through geography, aging infrastructure, and emergency response gaps, but proactive measures can create lasting solutions. Building redundancies in food storage and distribution networks, along with reducing vulnerabilities through energy independence and infrastructure improvements, can help us achieve community resilience. Another important aspect is collaboration, which means shared resources, trained volunteers, and coordinated responses. Collaboration makes resilience a natural part of community planning rather than an afterthought. Shared resources, volunteer networks, and local engagement efforts can work to multiply impacts and efforts for community resilience. So I'm going to take a second I think Austin introduced the 4 seasons earlier, but I'm going to take a second to give a quick overview of the great work that they're doing in the Tazewell community. So the YMCA's goal is to empower young people and communities worldwide to build a just, sustainable, equitable, and inclusive world where every person can thrive in body, mind, and spirit. I asked the YMCA's director, Sean Durham, for advice for folks looking to increase community resilience, and you can see his response highlighted here. He said, "My advice is always have a conversation." So I think this kind of mentality is kind of obvious in this picture because you can see the YMCA's collaboration in action, but they're partnered with the Carillion Hospital, that's to the left of this image, and they also partner with ASD to run the community garden, that's to the right of this image. And then here in the middle is through another partnership that they've formed, they have a solar array through Secure Solar Futures, which will ensure the YMCA is sustainable for decades. Sean described the solar project as a no-brainer because energy costs were the largest expense for the YMCA. And the partnership will allow the YMCA to, oh, I already said that, sorry. It also provides additional opportunities for system expansion and battery storage, like Austin had mentioned earlier. So this isn't this is the beginning of their resilience journey. Keeping the power on, even in the event of a disaster, is a priority since the YMCA is hoping to be included in the county emergency plan to serve as a fallout shelter. And they're uniquely positioned for such a thing. Sean did also mention that at the YMCA, they work to provide healthy opportunities to all community members, and they offer scholarships and for memberships and programs to make sure that everyone can access their programs. So on June 22nd, the Four Seasons YMCA will be celebrating 16 years of serving the Tazewell community. And I went ahead and included a link in here if anyone's interested in getting involved or donating to the Four Seasons YMCA. So just to wrap up, resilience isn't just about preparation, it's about building stronger communities today. It starts with all of us, whether through supporting local projects, starting conversations in your own community, or simply spreading the word about preparedness. There's a role for everyone in shaping a more secure future. Appalachia thrives on its people's strengths, and together we can shape a future that's ready for anything. Shared knowledge and community involvement fuel meaningful change, and with more organizations joining resilience initiatives, now is the time to act. Let's make sure what we've learned today doesn't just stay in the space, but hopefully we can take them back to our communities and turn them into action.
Thanks, Randy. Those are great words. And a great segue into Lou's work. That is just an embodiment of that work. And so Lou, let's hear about your work in Russell County and how y'all have been responding to challenges there.
Well, thank you very much. Again, my name is Lou Wallace, and I'm currently District 2 Supervisor on the Board of Supervisors. And my district happens to be, encompasses a little community called Dank, Virginia. And it is, at one time, it was historically the largest coal camp just about in Southwest Virginia, hosting about 6,500 people at one time, living, working, and staying in these three little hollers, as I'm going to call it, because that's what we call them here. But anyway, we've experienced some devastating flooding over the years. And because of the location of the community, it is very hard for anyone to get in and out sometimes, and they're cut off by streams. So I'll let you see what we've done. So we've been creative in thinking about how we rebuild things. So what you're seeing here in this first slide is an old school, and it was a regional Black school. As you can see, it could not be salvaged, but so we brought in Virginia Tech, the community design assistance team, and we said we need to be working on our community. Now, I'm going to say something, I'm going to preface this. I did not see in my forward-thinking crystal ball that I was going to ever be able to use this site as a resiliency hub of sorts. So I'm giving you a little bit of the backstory. So anyway, we created an idea that we would use brownfield money. And so it took down the school because it was loaded with asbestos, you name it. Every pollutant that you can think of was in this school. So we took down the school. The community design assistance team of Virginia Tech redesigned it using brownfield money. Now, brownfield won't let you rebuild a building. It will let you take care of a green space and create just a space. It will not do buildings. So we had to be creative in how we rethought this thing. So the students said, let's try a campground. Now, it is connected to ATV trails, et cetera, so I won't go there, but I want to stay on target for that. So it does have a use, let's put it that way, an in use, but it did not have a use like we've used it for. Next slide, please. Hello. Okay, very good. So what you can see is an aerial of where the school was backed up against the tree line. We ended up with four full service RV spaces and 6 primitive spaces for tents. What you see there where the white pickup is the actual place that we used as our resiliency hub. This was all paid for by AMLR money in Virginia. And so we were able to come out, the county was able to come out of this debt free. Now, so what we did was during the storm Helene, everything was completely shut down. Now, what happened in my world did not happen the same as in Damascus, where the trails were decimated, homes were decimated, streets were gone. We had a lot of trees down. We had no power for 9 days. And when the power goes out in this cold camp, there is no water service. So everything was completely shut down, including roads and everything. So what we did was we put together the idea immediately within hours to say, okay, so I've got this campground. It's fully serviced. It's just sitting there. It does have water. And so I didn't have to pump water to it. But what happened was that bathhouse served as an anchor hub, and we were able to offer hot water. We were able to offer hot baths. We were able to offer charging stations, and we set up tents and we did food. So it became our delivery area in that little area for other places to be able to be reached. So we served several hundred food dinners and lunches and dinners for over the 8 days, 9 days that we were completely out of power. Not all the region was out of power. So those folks that was able to keep a job and work, they had to have some place to wash their clothes. They had to have some place to get a hot meal, and they had to have some place to take a shower so they could go to work the next day. And we were very complimented by the folks that came there. In fact, I had people handing me money, donating money, saying, use this to buy food or whatever. The county did supply a generator. So the way that the electric system was set up when we built the campground or we built the bathhouse, no one ever saw this happening. So we did have showers, we did have nice potties, and we made sure that we put a laundry room there, because one of the things when you're ATV and you're dirty and you have dirty clothes and everything, and you want to keep your clothes out of your camper or your RV site. And so the laundry room came to being because of that, but it ended up being one of the best things we'd ever done, because it allowed folks to have a place to wash their clothes. Next slide, please. You will see in these next slides that the parking lot was filled with folks. We had people coming out to deliver food. We had people that was making an appointments with other folks. And in our neck of the woods, there was no communication. The whole communication system was down. We had elderly folks that had no idea what the devastation was. They were locked out of their TVs. They had no way to know anything. Mobile service does not work in my area. So we had a hard time getting the word out. We were going door to door to get those out. Do you have those slides in here somewhere?
I'm not sure. We're having tech issues, so just give us a minute.
Sorry, I'll keep talking. But anyway, as you will see in the next set of slides, you will see folks, we set up tents, we put tables out, we borrowed grills. We had donated food that came there. We had the local fire department was shut down, so we had other fire departments and other volunteers taking water. Remember, I said when the electric is off, the water is out. So we just had to come together all together very quickly. Now I'm going to say this happened in September, October. The weather permitted after the storms and everything. You can see the blue skies in one of those photos. But if this had been in February, and last February, we did have another round of storms, and we had a lot of water. Luckily, we were not in the condition that we were in during the Helene storm. But if this would have happened at a different time in the year, we would have really had a problem. So this has awakened this community to say, we need to do better. And we are certainly working on that with Appalachian Voices and a multitude of partners now, that we're trying to create a resiliency hub that will do just what we did here in a makeshift tents, but it worked and it brought the community together. And that's a time that they will never forget. So I appreciate you allowing me to tell my little story of how it all came together. But the campground certainly was not designed to take on the task that it did. And we're hoping that we can get some funding to build some pavilions so that we won't be under makeshift tents, and we'll be able to take care of a problem if that ever arises again. And certainly we're seeing more and more of this throughout our nation. Again, I appreciate the opportunity to talk about my community and talk about the things that we're working on. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Lou. Oh, absolutely. And then I don't know if you saw it in the chat, but we have folks who are dealing with this right now who are really resonating with your story and appreciating learning from you. So thank you so much. We're going to tie a bow on it all with Natalie Cruz-Daniels, professor at Ohio University. And thank you so much for joining us, Natalie. And you don't have to rush. You take your time. We are going to have to tighten our Q&A section, which I think is okay. So please just, if you have questions in the chat, please answer those. And as I've said in the chat, there are so many people in this call with so much knowledge. And so anyone on the call should feel free to weigh in on any of those questions that y'all see in the chat, because I know there's a lot of answers. It's not just our speakers. So appreciate y'all. And Natalie, I'll stop talking and hand it over to you.
No worries. Thank you all for having me, and I appreciate people being in for the long haul. We've heard some really incredible examples of the ways that these hubs have been developed in our region and are really serving the people in our communities. I'm going to talk through some of that kind of higher level best practices that hopefully will spark some ideas and let us think about how we can creatively implement these things in rural communities. So, like that high level structure, right? We're talking about, places, a physical place, right, that can serve our communities before, during, and after disaster, right? And that's really important, right? That we have to have those three modes of work. And I know we've talked about that a lot already. I'm going to move quickly through this part. And that, we're looking at these different areas, right? We're looking through service and programs, communications, building and landscapes, power, operations, right? And all of these things, come from that original concept from USDN. But really, when we start looking at how we implement this in rural communities, we have to sometimes be a little bit more creative. Really what we want to do is go for some of those fundamental concepts, right? And so the things that come out in our research about this is that, we need to, and all the examples really, spoke to these things, right? We got to focus on those available and trusted locations. I'm going to talk about the possibilities for hub and spoke implementations in a minute. What are the co-located services that are already in our community that we can use to guide function of rural resilience hubs? Really, what services are provided? When you go to, national resources about developing resilience hubs, you're going to see hundreds of different ideas. Really, the idea that the community need and the community values should inform what of those 100 different options are happening at the church or at the community center or whatever that happens to be. A real focus in our communities on communication, water, and power, because those are services that we have seen be out for pretty long periods of time that really affect our most vulnerable folks. And then understanding that in our rural communities, we need to also think about how are people getting to our hubs. So in the Charleston example, it's a really excellent example, but there's more walkability, or there's at least shorter transit routes. Whereas when we think about some of our very rural communities, we have to think about how are people going to get there. When we think about those locations, what we've seen in our research is that we can get really creative about this. We've heard some really good examples here, but some of the ones that I really see come up when we start pulling case studies are public libraries, communities and senior centers, houses of worship, schools, health centers, fire stations or similar. And then, again, thinking a little creatively, bars, coffee shops, restaurants, businesses, other things. This isn't rural, but there are communities that that really look for, what is the trusted local organization, even if that's a coffee shop, maybe that's the right place for that community. So when we think about how we can do this, the hub and spoke model is one that USDN talks about. And so in a city, we can imagine a hub and spoke model being something like a main branch of a library and then the satellite branches. Or we could imagine a large community center or a government building, and then neighborhood-based hubs that have fewer services, but they work together. When we kind of zoom out to our rural areas, we sometimes have to be a little more creative about what that looks like. So is it that volunteer fire station that's in our small community that can connect with the public library, the community center, or the church in a larger nearby community to support services to our more dispersed population? So thinking about, again, how can we connect and create resources that serve our most vulnerable folks, knowing that we have a very distributed population. So one of the things that we find as we do research and education around these is really starting with what organizational partners are already serving the community with. So whether that's houses of worship or food banks or a food hub or community center, YMCA, things like that. I feel like I'm repeating myself on some of those things, but that idea of, how can you just build upon what's already there? So some of the things that we've seen in case studies include low-income housing developments, food banks, farmers market, food hubs, health clinics, public libraries, community centers, things like that, as some key places where we can just build and create resiliency around a trusted local organization that's already serving our community. And really then communities drive what those services are, right? Those rural resilience hubs can focus on, the ones in our research have focused on food, they focus on health or mental health, on children-based services, on older adults, on emergency services and emergency response. And it really just depends on what the community is and what the community values and what the resources are already there, right? So what can we build upon in a community that really invests in those trusted, already working organizations that we can invest more resources in it and create resilience around that. But what does that leave out, right? What are the things that have been missing, or what are the things that could be added to some of these locations or some of these service co-location or resilience hubs in progress to really support our communities? So some of those key things that came out that some were there but maybe spottily were things like food preparation and storage, water and also ice, especially when we have those extended power outages, cooling and heating relief, and in some places now also bad air quality relief, childcare, restrooms and showers and laundry as really key elements to recovering, basic medical accessibility for people of different abilities, and then meeting and gathering space that can serve as central command during a disaster. Some of those critical needs that again come out again and again, but are not always there, are those for communication, power, water, and transportation as really critical needs in there. So when we zoom out to some of these best practices that we see as we start, pulling these different examples of resilience hubs in rural communities, really that idea of being community oriented and area specific, connecting with local organizations, local businesses, including educational programming during that normal operational period, and include in that some workshops and things like that that build resilience at a household and at a community and neighborhood level. Food security, so whether that's storage or preparation and distribution, available technology, so people coming to use Wi-Fi, people coming to use computers, things like that. Improved walk and bike pathways, so even in rural communities, how are people getting there? Are there ways to get there when roads are blocked? And then clean water, backup power as really critical foundational resources. Some of the things when we look at kind of the gap analysis of the case studies that we worked with, health resources, disaster preparedness, focus. A lot of times the disaster preparedness is kind of the afterthought, but making sure that it's part of, planning. Transportation to hubs, clean energy generation, deep community engagement, and partnerships are the things that we saw as pieces that really are critical to be built into planning. And then we can't forget Wi-Fi and radio communication. So, what are the low-key ways of communicating that don't rely on broadband? Stormwater and floodproofing of our resilient sub, right? We need to make sure that is also has good stormwater infrastructure and is floodproof. Mental health resources. In other research we've done, the mental health impacts of extreme weather events on community members have been some of the biggest health effects, long-term health effects. An equipment library that allows people to check things out that will help them recover. And then childcare and gathering spaces. So I tried to do that very whirlwind because I know we're running behind a little bit. These slides will come with the notes, but these are just trying to bring some of the best practices from our research, evaluating a lot of case studies of rural resilience into best practices and ideas and things that we can bring into these together as communities.
You wrapped that up really fast. I wasn't ready, Natalie.
I told you I could.
Yeah. Oh, you're a professional. Well, we all are. Well, I have no regrets that we ran over because I wouldn't change a word that was said on this webinar. Everything has been incredibly helpful. We do have about 15 minutes for questions. We had some questions dropped in the chat, but I actually think a lot of those were answered in the chat. And so I might ask you to repeat questions if you still have questions to share. You can share those in the chat. Or if your question is quite complicated, you can also come off mute for those. Yeah, go ahead, Mac.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
So I wanted to, express interest in both the cooperative opportunities that we might have, like purchasing solar panels or something, and, made in Ohio, of course. Just kidding, but US made, obviously. But also, this idea of a planning charrette, and who knows how to do that, and who's funded to do that? That can come to New Richmond, Ohio. And, I think, in other words, we're a network, got a lot of skills here. Anybody done that? How do we, sort of, do that charrette's a cooperation. You get all your stakeholders together and agree about a plan. Well, when you've got that, you've got a political constituency, or at least the big start of one organized, which is, invite your congressmen and legislators and so on, who are always happy to show a face to a group of people. You start to build power, in other words, and not just renewable energy power, but political power. So that planning charrette is a community organizing strategy that I would like to help on, in New Richmond, Ohio, at 5 campus public schools, ...
That's really exciting. Yeah, like folks said in the chat, the example that Randy shared from Appalachian Sustainable Development, use that, as well as the Open Circle Studios, which is one of the groups that hosts this, that helps support the Central Appalachia Network, that's co-host of this call, are really active and experienced in those. So I can maybe put you in touch with those folks. And I know Rural Action is one of the partners of Central Appalachia Network that's in Ohio. So yeah, we definitely have folks who are experienced in that. And if anybody wants to offer your services to Mac, absolutely do so.
Well, let's take it another, I'll match your Annie and up you 2 poker chips. Let's write a grant together to do community charrettes in all our communities to have a more powerful constituency. ...
Yeah. Grace asked a really concrete question, which is if folks have examples or templates for these kind of community programs that have worked for them that you've used. I don't have any off top of my head, but I know I've been to presentations. I think I've been to a presentation from someone at ASD who shared a really good example, but but if folks have those or can share them, we can put those in the notes too. Austin, do you have some things like that at Voices? Or that you
Yeah, so we've been doing some work around energy, or not energy resilience, around resilience in general, Appalachian Voices, through a program formerly known as EJCPS, or the Environmental Justice Planning Grants, now kind of more known as Community Strong. And so we've developed kind of a template or a model for 5 different communities that we've been working with to be able to do this work. Several of which I presented on, several others have presented on here today. And so, if you reach out to me, I'd be more than happy to talk with you all and get you connected to the team members that we have actually leading that program, to do so and to try to give you a little bit of a template on how we've been doing so in Southwest Virginia. And we are currently adapting that model to being specifically focused on energy resilience hubs. So, how can we take this model that we've been using for community resilience broadly and really narrow it down to these specific types of resilience that we need to consider throughout each one of these communities. And so if you're interested in figuring that out, feel free to email me. I'll pop my email in the chat and I can get you connected with the community members or my colleagues who can more deftly speak to what we've been doing in that space.
Great. And if you have any links to any specific materials, Austin, we can put those in the follow-up email. So just send them my way. But I understand if you don't have anything that's like a formal PDF that's ready to share. But if other folks have links that they want to share, we can also put those in the follow-up email. And Mac, I appreciate your energy to write a grant to get this off the ground, but I don't have time. So anybody who wants to work with Mac on that, it's a fantastic work that needs done. Other kind of other question for folks or resources that you want. And then one of the questions I always ask our speakers is, what is something that you learned the hard way that you wish you knew at the start? And so just as we're moving towards the end, I don't know if any of our speakers have any lessons that they learned the hard way that they'd want to save folks the trouble of let them learn the easy way from your experience. But I find that one always a helpful question.
Well, one of the
Yeah, and
Austin, go ahead.
go on, Elder.
Okay, I was just going to say that one of the lessons learned is that this process takes a little longer than to sometimes anticipate, and to be patient with yourself through the process. You're going to learn some things you didn't know before. And so if you recognize that going forward, then you can continue to build the coalitions you need to build, because we're all in this together and we're just trying to find the answers to the questions. And sometimes you don't even know what the questions are, but there are other people in the room who do know the question. So just realize that you're on a journey, and this journey may take a little longer than you anticipated, and just be patient with yourself.
Well, I love that. And it actually makes me think of something I wanted to say earlier, which is that I know that right now the funding climate is horrifying, for lack of a better word, but like Elder Denise is saying, this stuff takes a long time. And so if you're in an early phase, I know some of us are in later phases, and so the funding, it's hitting you at a hard spot. But if folks are at an earlier phase, I wouldn't be too intimidated, because if you're looking at a 1 or 3 or 4 year process, then we might be looking at a very different funding climate in 2 to 4 years, and things do we move at the speed of trust is another thing I've heard, and trust can be slow. But Lou, I'd love to hear what you think as an answer to that question too.
Well, I popped back in here, so thank you for recognizing me. Lessons learned. You know what? Nobody is prepared for everything. But to learn from other communities and start thinking toward that, that is a great lesson for us. We were all about reviving our community and making it better and be economically at the forefront of what we used to be. But we learned along the way that we still needed to take care of ourselves some way or somehow in some of these issues. You never know what's going to happen, but if you don't start thinking about it now, you won't get there.
Thank you. Yes, exactly. That's so great. And
Mm-hmm.
Austin, what did you have for us?
Yeah, I think one lesson that we learned is nothing is more critical than locally rooted support. We've worked on projects where we thought it would be a great idea. We could see the easy funding line. In fact, we ended up getting projects funded, but that in the end didn't have enough community support to see the project push through. And so having that local champion, having that community members, not just a single person, but those members that are all committed towards the same goal, that all agree that this is the path forward, is really crucial. You can have all the money in the world, but if you don't have the people at the end of the funding that's actually willing to commit to it and fully believes in what you're doing, then you're not going to get a project through.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And Randy or Balin, do you have any lessons learned or things that you've seen folks learn the hard way, Balin, through the funding that you might share here?
Yeah, I'd echo that this takes much more time than any of us would like. So be patient with yourselves and all your partners involved. Um, and I think underpinning this entire conversation is that the real sort of pressing capacity gap that we have in the region is that we need an army of like engineers and architects and designers to help us facilitate this process and think creatively about what partnerships you can build to connect that expertise with projects on the ground, working with academic institutions, and working to align curriculum with community project needs, collaborative research, and sharing information. And more than anything, what we need is systems to collect the data that our communities need to make informed decisions. So that's not a short and sweet answer, but those are big gaps. And I think that we can collectively build the infrastructure we need to make this happen.
Mm-hmm. And Randy, I think I saw you come off mute.
I was just gonna say, I think that we've faced similar challenges that have already been described, and what's already been said is like so perfect, and I agree with all of it, especially with it taking longer. So we're nearing the groundbreaking part during this funding climate, so that has been a struggle. But knowing where your priorities lie, what's non-negotiable, and where you can pivot is really helpful for being able to take whatever comes and still get your project done at the end of the day. Or not the end of the day, the end of the decade, maybe. We'll see. Hopefully not.
Thank you.
Let me also just add this too, because it hit my spirit. We're in this for the betterment of our communities. And so we also have to hang on to hope while we're doing this. I know I said patience, but hope that this is going to get done. The right people at the right time in the right places, doing it for the right reasons, builds hope in our communities who need that, particularly now. So hang on to your hope as well. Not preaching a sermon, just want to share that.
We always need a sermon. Never hesitate. I love it. No, that's such a beautiful note to end on. I couldn't agree more. No, I really appreciate it. So I'm gonna let y'all go in just a moment. We're at the end. We've shared, well, like I said, we'll wrap all this up, send it out. I'm so grateful to all of our speakers and for all of the work you do outside of this little sliver of your lives that you shared with us. So Absolutely in awe of the work that was shared today, and I know so much more experience on the call for folks. I do have a little wrap up poll as this webinar series goes forward. We have a little poll option for you to fill out about what resources you need and how we can help you as you move forward. So if you want to fill that out for us, you're welcome to. And I have just another minute if anybody has any questions, but we're going to close the webinar formally and thank you all, and hopefully see some of you next month for our nature-based hazard mitigation.